just going to go ahead and jump in. So let's start with Sarah, if you don't mind. Sarah's joining us from Nashville, Tennessee, and it's snowing there. And would you like to tell us about your Farmer's Forest Loop quilt that's in our February issue?
Sure. Thank you so much. And it's so good to be with you guys today. And so in this February edition, we have the Farmer's Forest Loop, which is showcasing Jill Shollis's Meyer House collection from Robert Kaufman. And it's a take on a log cabin, just a rectangle log cabin. All levels, quilting levels will enjoy it. We were inspired by we grew up on a farm, my sister and I, who is the other designer, and we grew up on a farm, and our father has made a forest loop that we enjoy traveling on with the ATVs, as well as just taking a nice scenic walk through the woods. And so that was the inspiration, and we were very excited to work with Jill with her gorgeous fabrics as well. So that's a little taste of Farmer's Forest Loop.
Nice. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Yes, that's very cute. It's very nice.
Sarah, would you like to tell us a little bit about your design and, you know, they kind of look like some kind of a modified log cabin, but you just want to tell us what was in your head when you were.
Yes, it was. It's definitely a modified log cabin. You put it together very similarly to a log cabin. You'll be making really a quarter log cabin and placing those together, two different colorways. So there are two blocks here, and my sister, who is part of this, the designing, when she was designing the actual pieces, she was going with two different colorways, but more of a scrappy look. So as you can see, there's 4 different blues in that block, and 4 different tan and creams, and then we bordered it up. It's not a very big quilt. Let's see, it's about 50, I can't quite remember, but the size of it, but it's in 54. It's a nice lap size, but you can definitely just keep adding those blocks and creating a larger quilt as well.
Beautiful. Does anybody have any questions?
I'm not really seeing any questions. I have a question about whether, so I changed, first I showed just a picture, like the styled picture, and then I switched to the flat one. Did that work, you guys? Can you see? Okay, so like there's, so like right now I switched to the styled, and that's what you can see. Okay, thank you. Sorry, I didn't know if this was gonna work, so.
Thank you. It does work, and it's a nice enhancement to this.
I love those colors. Beautiful colors.
To me, those colors are very earthy and foresty. And how big is the trail that your dad made?
So it's right off of their farm. You go through this field, and it just takes if you were driving like an ATV, it only takes about 3 minutes just to make this loop. I would say it's a quarter of a mile, maybe a quarter of a mile to get there through the field, and then a quarter of a mile in the loop. And it's amazing if you go in it. I'm from Iowa, and that's where my parents farm. And it's amazing going into it in the summer versus the fall and even the winter. So in the summer, you really feel like you are not in, you're just taken away. There's nothing, you can't see any buildings, you can't see anything because of the green vegetation. But then in the fall and into the winter, which is more of these colors, you can start to see, see through the trees and see that there are buildings, and it really isn't that far away from reality, but it still is a nice little escape. And so it's a nice little loop that he had created.
Nice. Oh, I see Mario's joining us now. A question I had, or a comment on the quilt itself. It looks easy, and I see that it's rated with a 1 crow rating. You know, kind of, I think I'll always consider myself a beginner quilter, but it looks like you don't have to cut like 500 little tiny squares. You know, bigger pieces makes it easier.
Correct. Yes. Straight seams, nice size block, not too small. And so any level, I think, would enjoy making this. And if you've never made a log cabin, this is a fun one to start with as well. It has a little bit of a different look to it, since that it is one side is smaller, going to the width is smaller than the height, and so it just makes a neat looking log cabin. But definitely do not be afraid of this pattern. It's an easy layout and goes together very quickly.
I don't know that we have any.
I see in the chat, Mary has asked, can you make this quilt more scrappy? And you definitely can. What I would probably do is try to stick to a dark and a light, but you can definitely make this scrappy. If you didn't want it more of the 2-color, you could just do a bunch of lights where you see maybe the tan, and where the blues are, you could do darks. So definitely. Thank you for the question, Mary.
Okay, it looks like that was all the questions. I was just going to comment that, again, since it's kind of a wonky size, it really wouldn't matter what your finished size is, just that your finished ones are all the same color or the same size. So you could always make it bigger and trim it down if you were, you know, worried about your skill and your seam width. Do you have Susan C is asking again about what that fabric line is. I know it's a Jill Shawless.
Yes, it's Meyer House, which is Jill Shawless's newest fabric line for Robert Kaufman.
I'd like for everybody to meet our newest guest, Mario Sanabria. You want to say hi, Mario? Okay.
There he is.
Yay!
Technical problem. Yay! Finally. I'm
Oh, good.
technologically challenged. I'm sorry.
You're in good company.
Oh, thank you. You too. Delighted to be here.
So everybody, Mario is a new designer in Primitive Quilts and Projects. This February monthly mini has his first project with us called Blooming Flowers.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's really pretty. Do you have a picture, Elizabeth? There it is. So Mario, you want to tell us a little bit about this project? Your inspiration?
It actually comes from all the flowers that we have in Costa Rica. I mean, Costa Rica has, we call it winter and summer. Technically speaking, and being correct, would be only dry season and wet season. So it doesn't really matter if it rains or if it doesn't rain. There's always something blooming. Even in the very northern part of Costa Rica, which is where the tropical, it sounds kind of strange, but it's a tropical dry forest. You can find things, I mean, the ground is dry and you can find things blooming. So we're a very fortunate country that we can have that that option of having always flowers. I do love flowers. I mean, that's one of my things. Our mother, my Patricia and my mother had always flowers in the backyard, either roses or tropical flowers or something. And the colors are very vivid. So I try to use the colors found in the Heliconias family, like the bird of paradise and the emperor's cane is how we call it in Spanish. They're very bright oranges, yellows, deep burgundies, and the greens are quite actually dark. They're not very bright as one would assume, comparing them to the flowers. So that's what I try to use. I try to come up with a stylized version of a flower using the colors of those heliconias that we used to have in the backyard. So that's more or less where that comes from, the inspiration for that.
It's beautiful. Do you want to tell us about the stitches that you used in your applique?
Well, it's wool and cotton. So I did the blanket stitch all around the applique. I did French knots and long stems, and I did a how do you call it in English? Like a crosshatch, I believe, for the stems, just to give them some texture. And then I did the I do my own quilting as well. So those are like the base. They're very basic stitches that I used with the on the wool, basically. In the ones that I did use were more for texture purposes, more than to actually hold the applique.
Mario, we've got a question. Connie C says, did you hand quilt it? And I know you didn't, because I've seen it in person. Your quilting is just stupendous on this. And the texture, you talk about texture, this puffs up off the background and just is beautiful. And that's why I put up a detail photo. Can you guys see that now? So you can really see the texture of this. So do you want to talk about the quilting a little bit?
Yes, I did long time ago when I did have time, I guess like many of us. I used to do hand quilting just for my projects. Not anymore. I just don't have the time. So it's machine quilted, and I do it on a regular home machine. It's just it's not a long arm. I do not own a long arm quilting machine, so I just do it on a regular it's a 11, it has 9 inches. The arm is 9 inches. It's a little bit bigger than just the regular sewing machines, but I that's where I quilt everything from a tiny quilt all the way up to a king size quilt. I do everything there, and I do it by machine. So, and in this case, what I tried to do was a lot of doodling. I don't know if that would be a proper or technical name. I tried, the whole idea of doing such heavy quilting was to keep the background as flat as possible, because I knew that I was not going to be doing anything on top of the wool. And my idea was that to keep the background as flat as possible, so the applique would puff up. No, I wasn't sure if it was going to work, but it did. I'm glad it did, and I'm quite proud of it. I do like it very much.
It's awesome. We have several questions about, again, more about the batting. So Deanna wants to know what kind of batting you use. And then also Susan C says, is there any extra batting behind the flowers? And also she says this is her next project. So that's awesome.
Thank you. Good. Actually, no. I did use two different types of batting. The first was cotton batting, and then on top of that, I put the wool batting, and then the quilt, and I quilted it. So that's why it puffed up, because I didn't put extra batting on the back of the applique. It's just the whole quilt has double batting, has the cotton batting, the wool, and then the top, and I quilted it. That's what I did.
So it kind of has that that trapunto effect, even though you didn't do, you didn't put that extra batting. That's awesome.
Correct. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
We've got
that was the idea. That was what I was aiming for, without actually really knowing if it was going to. Now that it worked, I can confess I was not sure if it was going to work, but it did.
We've got one more question. Sherry says, did you layer the flower pieces together and then applique the whole flower to the quilt, or applique them to the quilt one piece at a time?
No, I did like the flowers. I did paste them all together to the background at the same time, and then I did one by one. As we say in Spanish, I like to complicate myself a little bit more than usual. So instead of probably would have been easier to do the burgundy part and then the orange and then the yellow. Now I did everything at once. I made the entire flower, pasted or put it with the applique glue to the background, and then did my stitches.
And then I know the answer to this already, but Janie S says, was the background quilted, then the wool flowers appliqued on top? But no, you quilted all of it after. Right?
Mm-hmm. I did the background, the center and the borders, and I did all of that. I made all of that, and then I made the flowers, and I the stems and the leaves and everything. I put all of that on top of the background of the entire quilt, and then I started appliquing, and then I quilted it. And I think that's what, now I'm thinking out loud, I think that's what makes the applique pieces puff, because if you if you quilt the entire background first, there's no room for the puffiness to show, because everything would be flat. Even though you're going to be covering with the wool with the applique, but it would be flat. It wouldn't be puffing it. And that's, I mean, the idea is to do the trapunto effect, which I was not sure if it was going to work. I don't know if you have any other questions, or.
I don't see any more questions. We just, Mary G says, beautiful quilt, love to do applique. Other than that, I don't see any other questions, but.
Now that after I made it and I saw it published and everything, I started thinking that I might know, I will do it again, but on using cotton instead of needle turn applique instead of wool, and see how it turns out.
That will be
For some-
interesting.
And for some reason, going to the other side of the spectrum, I see it doing it or making it with fabric in needle turn applique. I see it in blues. I don't know why, but we'll see what happens.
Can't wait to see what happens. Thank you so much, Mario. Well, then let's jump on over to your sister, Patricia Sanabria-Friederich.
That's my design for this month, and the inspiration came from, of course, Costa Rica. We have in Costa Rica over 50 variety of hummingbirds, actually 54, and you can find them in many sizes and many colors. And like I love them. I love birds. I love nature. So and then like Mario talked before about all the flowers that we have in Costa Rica and the colors and everything. So I always keep that in my mind, even though here in United States, we have in summer and fall, we have beautiful, beautiful flowers and plants. So there's where the inspiration came. And like I said before, it's like over 50 variety of hummingbirds, and it's like in different colors and sizes, like I said before. And this particular, there's like teal color is that we have in Costa Rica. I don't know exactly the name that it is, but it's like it's teal. The color is teal, and it have the chest is bright red, and it's just beautiful. And it have the white or creamy color under the wing when he opens his wings, and it's just gorgeous. So I took that image, and that's how I come up with this design. And about the stitches, I always says, I like to use simple stitches. I don't like to complicate myself too much or scare people too much about stitches, but I like to combine stitches. And so for this design, I use like lacy daisies, chain stitch, straight stitch, French knots, feather stitch, and it's just that, simple stitches. But for example, for the berries, the light blue berries, and instead of doing there is a nice picture. And instead of doing blanket stitch all around, what I did was just lacy daisies all around. And that's how I stitched down there the berries. And then for the little pink flower, you can see there, I just give a little bit of texture with just a mini button and a straight stitch and French knots. And for the leaves, and just blanket stitch and the feather stitch. So it's just simple stitches, but when you put them all together, they look nice, I think. Here for the red flower, you can see I just did a straight stitch in different sizes, so I give a little bit of dimension to the petals. And in the center, I choose French knots. And for the yellow flower, I did French knots all in top of the green area right there, so it looks like it's inside, like the pistillos is, and I think the word is very similar in English. Pistillos are coming from the back. So that's the stitches that I use in this project. So if you have any questions, I will be happy to answer.
Lute DM says, what kind of embroidery thread do you use, Patricia?
All my projects are done in Valdani. I use Baldani 12. It's 12.
Pearl cotton.
Cotton, yes. Pearl cotton number 12, Baldani.
And do you use variegated or do you use a combination or mostly solid color? I'm trying to.
I use both. I use variegated, like the blue berries that we have right now on the screen. Those are with variegated. And actually the red, it doesn't show too much, but the red too. And I believe the green too. Actually, the green I remember because I use them as H2O2. So, and the red is 0775. And I believe the light blue is 031. And I think those are the ones that I remember. I don't remember the rest.
We've got a couple of comments. Debbie Wick says, stunning colors of wool and beautiful stitches. Sherry says, it's beautiful. What do you like to back your projects with?
Flannel. I use flannel for the backing. I used to use homespun, but I don't know what is the difference nowadays and old days. I don't know. But now I feel like homespun frayed a lot. So I give it a try to flannel. And flannel, it holds the threads a lot better for me. So I like to use flannel, and it is soft, and it doesn't give any stiffness or anything to your project, a small or big project. It does, not affect at all your project. And the wools that I use in this project are from Marcus fabrics, Lanacut fabric. I mean wool, sorry. And just a few, like I think the yellow and one of the blues is not in the hummingbird, is not Lanacut, but the rest is all Lanacut from Marcus. I really like to work with their wools. They are very nice.
And those wools, so those aren't a hand-dyed wool. So do you felt those, or when
Yes.
you get it?
Excuse me that I interrupt you. Yes, I hand dye wool, my wool. I used to have a lady from North Carolina that she used to dye for me, but she retired. So I took a couple classes, and then now when I use hand dye wool, I do it myself. And if I don't reach the color that I want, I just go and shop around and build shops around my area, and I see the color that I want, then I get it. But the most part, I hand dye my wool. And now that I use in the Marcus fabrics, Lanacut wool, they have beautiful colors. And when I get the bolt, they come in a bolt. So I just undo the bolt and I felt it.
We've got, let's see, a couple more comments and a question. Nancy H says, love your design and the info about your country's hummingbirds. Mary G says, beautiful small mat and love the birds and the designs on the wings, which those are just easy little lazy daisies, but they're so cute.
Yes. Yeah, that's just simple. Yes. Just lazy daisy stitch.
And then we had a question about how Mario gets his, how do you attach the wool to the cotton top? And I answered it in the chat, but I think both of you, Patricia and Mario, you use a lightweight fusible. Is that correct? And if so, what brand do you like? Because I think you both fuse them down first. Is that correct?
I don't hear what you said. Can you please repeat to me?
Yes. Do you use that fusible web for yours?
Steam and steam.
Steam-a-seam. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Steam-a-seam too?
Yes, I used to use fusible web, but I went to Sarah's shop and took the class with Jill from Yellow Creek Designs, Jill Shields, and then that's how I pronounce. Is the right pronunciation? Jill Shields is her last
Uh,
name.
Jill
Shawless.
Shawless.
Oh, okay, okay. That's I took the class in Sarah's shop, and then she introduced me to that, and then I says I keep going with this. I love it because I used it before and I was not very sure, but when I took the class, I really learned how to do it, and then I now I just love it.
I use fusible web because the one that Patricia is doing using now, we can't get in Costa Rica. I've heard about it, um, but never tried it. And last December that I went to visit her, and I went to her shop, um, I learned about this other type of fusible web. So I'm going to start trying that one, and we're going to see if we can bring it to Costa Rica. But for that particular project and most of my wool projects, I'm using fusible web, the lightweight, because it's the one that I can find here in Costa Rica much easier.
I don't see any comments or any more questions, but and I think Mario, in your instructions, you said I think it was heat and bond light, which is what
It's
you
heat
use.
and bond. I'm sorry. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Heat
I'm
and-
sorry. I'm sorry. Yes,
No,
heat and bond.
no. And all of these are just different types of fusible web, but I think a lot of the important part is that you're using that light. So like whether it's Steam-A-Seam 2 or Steam-A-Seam 2 light, you kind of want that, if you still want your fabric, your project to be flexible, and you want to be able to sew through it, that's
Yeah.
what you want to use, that light. Some people love a particular brand and some people don't, but
And like in my case that I used, I'm sorry to interrupt, that I have the yellow center, the wool center on top of the orange and the orange on top of the burgundy. I didn't, I started going, when I was doing the applique, I started going all the way through from the yellow all the way to the burgundy and going back through the 3 layers of wool until I did one flower like that. And then my finger said, no, 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 no. And then I just started going yellow, catching the orange wool, and then orange catching the burgundy. I did learn my lesson. So that's how I did it.
I have a question, Mario. So as far as the thread that you use for your embroidery, what do you use?
Honey, pearl,
All
cotton number 12.
right.
Um, I find I've tried. I've used only 3 brands. I mean, along the way, and stay with. If I have to choose one over the others, would be Valdani, because the thickness of the thread, I enjoyed that one, and shows more on the stitches than sometimes another brand's cotton number 12. They tend to be the other 2 brands that I used before in some other projects that I've done through the years. They're not. They seem thinner. They're not, and sometimes depending on the thickness of the wool, they tend to disappear. And I have the problem that I sometimes um, tense. Tenso, tense too much the stitch, so the wool kind of uh, the thread disappears in the wool basically. So, and with Valdani, I've noticed that it doesn't happen that. So that I'm a Valdani boy now.
Elizabeth, do we have any more questions or comments?
I'm not seeing any more comments, so.
Okay, well, I want to jump back to Sarah. So would you like to share with everybody, some of your techniques that would make your Farmer's Forest Loop quilt go a little more smoothly and easily?
Sure. With the log cabin, any log cabin, those scant 1/4 inch seams are important just to get your blocks to fit together. And one tip that I had was I had used an acorn pressing solution, which it's an alternative starch, and that when you apply that on your seam, you apply it with it looks like a pin or a paintbrush almost with the alternative starch. When you apply that on your seam and then iron your seam, you get a much flatter seam, which means your 1/4 inch just becomes more accurate. There isn't as much bulk in your seams. And so that's one way to help with all of those seams, especially going that horizontal way where it's just a little bit thinner than going the tall way. They were finished at 1 inch going horizontally, and I believe finished at 2 inches going vertically. So just having, if you have quite a few seams that need to fit together, that's one tip that I have for you, is to use that alternative starch. Acorn has it, and you can get it in like a pin, or it's like a felt tip marker almost. You refill the utensil, and that really is helpful, I find.
Great, thanks. And I have videos of these projects that I haven't posted up on YouTube yet, but Sarah does talk about that starch pen, and excuse me, and then the video with Mario and Patricia is a combo. We've got the brother and sister all in one video talking about their projects. So be watching on our YouTube channel for those to go up in the next few days.
I don't see any more comments. Well, actually, okay. Mary G just said thank you, but so I think for the tip, and then I put a link in the chat about your the acorn precision piecing solution, I think is what it's called. So I put a link in there. Other than that, I don't see any questions or comments. So
okay, I think that's a wrap then. Oops, here's one.
Oh, yep. Nancy H says, how do we get notifications on YouTube? So if people follow our YouTube channel, do they get a notification when you post something new, Judy?
Yes, you would get one, but I can also send out a newsletter that lets you know when those are up. This is Wednesday. It'll probably be early next week by the time I get those up there. And then I'll be starting on the March videos. I'm a little behind schedule all of these months. Poor Elizabeth. She's so, let everybody know, Elizabeth is furiously typing away, putting together our March issue that she uploads tomorrow. So that'll be out real soon. Be looking for that.
So I upload it tomorrow, but you guys, you won't see it until March 1st. So don't be looking for it yet. But
yeah. All right. Well, thank you all so much for your time. I love these projects, and I hope to see pictures of the ones everybody makes. Thank you so much.